And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, director at WEIU Radio. Our co-host is out today studying, which is a good thing. Our guest is Kristina Adams-Smith, nutritionist and dietitian at the Carle Health Nutrition Services Department in Carle. And I asked her where her offices was, and she said basically everywhere between Champaign and Olney. Welcome, Kristina.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming in on this December day. But I thought it was apropos that we're going to be talking about nutrition because this is part of the year where there's so many different alternatives and temptations out there in the food and snack world. So maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into some stuff that you do.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been a dietitian for about 23 plus years, not counting too many. I graduated here from Eastern, both my undergrad and graduate degrees, and most of my work is clinical. A lot of weight management is my background. The last 5 years, mostly more consulting. I also have a business on the side that I do consulting, a lot of cooking demonstrations as well. Oh, that was my original passion that kind of led me into dietetics was the cooking and the nutrition piece. So thanks to an advisor I had here at Eastern years ago, she said, you really should think about the dietetics program, that I could do a lot more with that as far as opening doors and jobs.
Healthier eating during the holidays is tough, and even heading into the new year. So maybe start out with a couple of ideas or tips or suggestions maybe.
Yeah, one of the things that with the weight management program for years, I always have told my patients this, is try to keep it about the holidays and really think of things that mean the holidays to you when it comes to food. So it's not about all of the food that's there, that there may be certain like traditions that you've had or favorite dishes that have been made over the years. Like concentrate on having those around the holidays and not feel like you have to partake of everything and put it on your plate. And then some of the little things along the way we've talked about, just smaller plate sizes, trying to not make as much food for get-togethers so there's less leftovers, trying to have to-go containers if you do have the party at your place so that you can send everyone home with a little extra so you have less around.
So it's obviously eating healthy is difficult at all times, but when it comes to the holidays, it's the worst. Is it better, like if you're going to some place where there's going to be a lot of food, to maybe eat something small or drink a lot of water before you go? Is there a tip like that?
There's a lot of strategies that we talk about, to kind of help manage that better. And a lot of it is old thinking is, I'm going to this party, I'm not going to eat all day because you want to be able to splurge. Yeah. But if you're trying to watch your waistline and you have health conditions, that's probably not the best thing to do. So yes, trying to eat regularly through the day so that you do have snacks and meals through the day that keep you a little bit more full, so you're less likely to overindulge when you do get there. But also activity, make sure you include that through the day. That's one thing that sometimes, that I do talk a lot about is how much movement we can do that can actually help with our food intake. So making sure that can be a big driver too, to make sure activity is part of your day.
I like the way that you put something. You said food is medicine. So talk about that.
Yeah, well, that was one of my sentences, and that leading into a paper I wrote one time was like, eat to live, don't live to eat. So kind of the same concept, food is medicine. So a lot of what we're put in our body can help with how we're feeling, and it can also hurt and how we feel. So I think a lot of times when we go through the holidays, it's very high fat, high sugar, so things that can kind of make us feel yucky. So just kind of keeping those things in mind to stay well hydrated, to try to eat fresh fruits and vegetables, keep more of the healthy stuff around too, to complement some of the not so healthy things that we get around the holidays.
When people are shopping at the stores, can you give us some helpful hints there? And because that's one of the other temptations where I know you shouldn't go to the store hungry because then you buy everything. But talk about what you can buy at the store that maybe is a substitute for something not as good.
Yeah, so a lot of times, yeah, true. A lot of the times, it's the vegetable trays. To have plenty of vegetables in a little dip or something to go for, to have to snack on. Even when you get home, I remember one time I had that for us, just as a family to snack on when my son was looking, going, "Are we having a party?" Like, no, this is just for us to snack on when we get home. So kind of try to instill that in your family. Like, it's not always the snack foods to go towards, or the pastries or the baked goods. So the relish trays are always helpful. Even having less of the baked goods around, or if you are baking, making sure they are for gifts that you're going to be giving away, things like that. So having those available too.
And obviously, when you're cooking, you're a big proponent of baking or grilling. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's easy to say, but is there ways to, in preparation? Because the world's so busy right now.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of gadgets that are very helpful to make that easier on us. So there's the air fryers and the Instapots are really popular with a lot of my patients. So I'm glad to hear that they're taking advantage and using those. I'm still the crock pot generation, so I haven't graduated to those as much. But I think any of those would be really helpful just to make the plan ahead meals so that you're not victim to eating out or going, the leftovers that might be there, having too many of those things. So it depends on where you're at with your meals that week. And schedule's really tight this time of year with lots of events going on, social gatherings, holiday events, and different things with work events too, with potluck. So it can be very challenging. So having a planned, healthy meal.
And you one of the things I said, it's really coming up with a plan. And so if they call you or someone that's a dietitian in your field, is that what you create for the folks? Is a meal plan and a diet plan?
Yes and no. Okay. Yeah, a lot of my nutrition or diet instruction as far as nutrition referrals usually are revolving around a health concern. So someone's a diabetic, someone has heart disease, maybe a food allergy or food intolerance. Some of those things I'm directing them to kind of know which foods are better and which foods cannot be so good for that condition. But also at the same time, when I give them that information, they kind of have that deer in headlights look like, what do I do with this? So I do end up having some sample like menus or meal plans that I can show them, like this is what it looks like on a paper as far as put together in a meal. So that way they're not just thinking individual foods like I need to eat this and this, but not this and this, but how do I put that together on my plate?
Yeah. That's a good answer. And then the other thing is, it seems like more and more, growing up, we never ate out hardly in our house. My mom cooked every night for supper. And when you went out for pizza on the third Saturday of the month or whatever, it was amazing. But the world we live in now is different. So how can people eat out and try to do better than, growing up, we did, 20, 30 years ago?
Yeah, it's kind of the simple concept is just being more mindful of those choices that you're having and kind of being thoughtful of what you're choosing. Back to what you mentioned, baking, grilling, broiled options that are on the menus, trying to change sides out if they're fried or more heavy carb laden kind of things if you want to cut back on that area. Ways that you can add in more vegetables if you wanted to, or split a meal with someone that you're each consuming a little bit less, so it's a smaller portion. So there's lots of ways to manage it, but it's just being mindful of those choices. Or if you can look ahead, if it's a chain restaurant or somewhere online that has a menu that you can look at and kind of get a plan going.
And don't get appetizers, right?
Well,
isn't that the one? Because you don't ever eat appetizers anywhere else, but you go out, we got to get the cheese sticks or the fried whatever,
Good point.
Beans instead of meat. One of the things you talked about. Can you give a helpful hint, or for the fervent meat eaters, that's going to be a tough sell. So how do you get them to do that?
Well, a lot of substitutions are helpful when you're creating dishes, or if you're even taking something you've cooked forever that's a family recipe. Think about ways you can make it healthier. So a lot of times it's, can I choose a low-fat version versus the regular fat? Can I add more vegetables and take out less of the pasta? Or can I use some beans and take out less of the meat? So it's kind of like a happy medium. It doesn't have to be a complete switch, but usually my recommendation is 30% less. If you can take out 30% of something, that if you're trying to reduce the fat, reduce the carb, reduce the sugar, whatever it is, then you're still going to get a decent product. It's just probably and it's just tastes the same, but you'll add more nutrition by adding in. So reducing in somewhere, but adding more vegetable and cutting back here and adding there.
Okay, we're talking to Kristina Adams-Smith from Carle today. She's a nutritionist and a dietitian there, and talking about healthy eating for the holidays. One of the things growing up, and we all heard it from our parents and our grandparents, is you got to clean your plate before you can get up from the table. Even in school, they told us that. At least where I grew up, is you can't leave until your plate's finished. So, talk about how that has changed and why that's kind of a fallacy now.
It is. So we have a lot of challenges because of that. I have a lot of patients in that age range of mine and a little older that have kind of fallen into that. So it is something to consider. It's like, the mindfulness, back to that again, is just eating till you feel full and not going further. And smaller plates can help with that. That way you're not putting as much on your plate, so you don't have as much to clean up.
That's a good answer. It's the season of giving, obviously, too, so people are going to give you, everybody's going to get cookies or popcorn or whatever the quote-unquote not good stuff for you. Are suggestions that what you do with that, you don't want to throw food away, but can you regift it, or what other things can we do with some of those things?
You can do,
or take it to the office.
Yeah, that's what usually happens. Is leftovers go to the office, share it with your friends or your coworkers. But you can do put things away for the freezer meal and have it for later, so that you could always revisit it at another time, so you don't feel like you have to throw it out, and maybe have leftovers at another time or day. So that way you're not wasting food. Unfortunately, because of foodborne illness, we can't really regift it if it's something that's been. But baked goods are pretty easy. If you're baking and wanting to give that away for holiday gifts, that's definitely an option.
For someone who you think would need something, how do you do a healthy cookbook or a magazine? It's kind of like a sign. Hey, you probably need to do better, but is that something you can do, or talk about that?
I Well, as a dietitian, it's kind of my job, but I usually kind of like to look at cookbooks that provide nutritional content.
Yeah.
So that's always one thing in my mind when I'm giving a gift. If it is like a health-related gift, that's like, oh, this is one of my favorites, or I really like this cookbook because it has these things in it. And because I get that question all the time from people. It's like, how do I cook healthy and make it taste good and make it cheap and make it affordable and all those questions. So, that's one of the things I try to keep in mind is like things to look for in a cookbook. So if you are wanting to gift someone, especially if you know they have, known health problems, like here's a heart healthy cookbook and it was recommended, and maybe this would be awesome, something to try.
That's a good idea. There's healthy homemade gifts you can make for people. Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, some of the jarred soup mixes are fun. So those are always just layer them in the mason jar, and then you could give it with a recipe card attached to it for some different soup mixes that you can use dried beans and different things in it too, or you can just do the kind of carb ingredients like the flour, sugar, starchy things that you can layer in there and give away too. And other things could be just fruit baskets, because they have a lot of fruit of the month club kind of things that you could do that are fun. You can always do just the traditional like cheese and crackers with maybe some fruits and some wine or something, just make it kind of more charcuterie board like. So those are always healthy to a point.
Yeah. Now, when you get invited to a holiday party, what kind of things does Kristina Adams-Smith bring? I mean, are you always bringing something healthy or good for people, or what?
I usually try to make it a mix, because I do like grew up with a veggie relish tray, so that's usually my go-to, but I'm big on the charcuterie boards now, because I feel like that's a good mix of your carb, fat, protein kind of foods. And so I'm a big proponent for nutrient composition of foods, not just a calorie kind of mix for that purpose. But then I'm a big brownie fan, so sometimes I'll bake the brownies in or the cookies.
Late night eating is bad. So can you take us through some, if you're talking to one of your clients, the breakfast, supper, and then lunch, and then lunch, then supper or dinner, or whatever you want to call it at night, how late do you need to stop eating, I guess, is the best way to answer that.
So it's a great question. I get that a lot, because there's been a term recently called intermittent fasting. So to me, it's the old don't eat after 7 kind of recommendation. So I said we just put a new term to an old recommendation. Yeah. So that's kind of still the same rule, is try not to eat at least 2 hours before bed. So that can vary for a lot of patients. So that's why I said, well, it can be kind of the same concept, but depending on when you start your day and when you end your day, can make a big difference on your eating habits. But I always do encourage patients, earlier is better when you're eating, so you're getting less calories at night, because that tends to be the cycle of weight gain and trying to get kind of back on track, is trying to push that early in the day.
Should people drink more water late at night before they go to bed?
Not necessarily. I mean, we definitely need to drink more water, but that can interfere with the sleep cycle. If we're drinking and eating too much at night, then it's just going to keep us up.
Okay. We put on there, try it. You want to eat at your usual meal time. So people really need to stick to like the 3 meals or the 2 meals or whatever they have a day. Yeah,
kind of what I mentioned earlier. If you're going to a holiday gathering, try not to skip any meals for the day, to stick to that routine. But maybe we have a little bit less if you want to have some more at the event you're going to, but not to completely skip those meals altogether, where you're just going to kind of overindulge and head first you're going in when you get there.
You talked about the intermittent fasting, and that seems to be everywhere right now on online, as well as all the magic pills, the Golos, and all this stuff. I know none of it is the answer to everything, but talk about when you see these ads on TV or you hear them on radio. What kind of things go through your mind?
Well, my first thing, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And I usually think, too, there's probably some other meal plan that goes with it. It's not just about take this pill, it'll solve everything. Usually they have recommendations for diet, meal changes, food incorporation, food elimination. So there's a lot of things that are layered into that can be a little bit deceiving once you get into it, which is a good thing at one point, because we probably do need to make some changes for that, but it's probably not as good as it sounds when you first hear it.
The A word, alcohol, during the holidays, it seems like it's, you go to parties and it's there's a champagne toast, or there's wine given out, or there's just, drinks available. Mm-hmm. So, your game plan for alcohol during the holidays?
I usually recommend trying to alternate, like an alcoholic drink with a non-alcoholic, or just water in between. So that way you kind of can pace the rate, and you're getting less calories, empty calories specifically for that reason too, through the day and the evening.
Obviously, every diet is going to have to be with exercise. So if you're talking to someone who is at the beginning stages, what are some simple exercises or walking to get them going?
Yeah, a lot of times it's just I find out what they have access to or what they've done previously, and just start with that, what they know works for them, but just trying to get some movement in. So if you have breaks during the day that you can take a lap around your building or take the stairs and take a longer route to get somewhere in the building. If you have time either morning or night that you can split in, a little exercise would be good too. But it's all about just getting up and moving more. And I think that's one thing I try to help patients realize, it's not an all or nothing. It's like you don't have to just do 30 minutes or 60 minutes a day. You can do 3 little 10 minutes here and there through the day, still get your 30 minutes in and split it up.
Beginning, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's that mindset of, we all think I have to go spend an hour in the gym. Like, no, you don't. You can go for a 10-minute walk in the morning, go walk the dog, or if you already walk the dog a little longer. Or if you have lunch. No, most of us don't need an hour to eat. So we could take a walk on our lunch. Even if it's for 10 minutes, we can still do that.
Somebody starting out, how long does it take for them to start seeing maybe some, even minuscule results?
I feel like they can notice within a week, honestly, because a lot of my patients, I have some patients, I'll have them see me in a month for a follow-up because they feel like sooner's better. And they'll tell me just within a week or two, they're noticing they're either sleeping better, or they have less headaches, or they notice less joint pain, just from maybe changing up, like maybe they're drinking more water. They were lacking in water, or maybe they've cut out sugary drinks. And they start noticing that their body's responding better. It's like, I feel less bloated. I, have regular bowel movements. I mean, lots of things that are coming up from these just within, anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks that they're coming back to see me.
When you get recipes these days, there's a lot of times it says put the bad stuff in. We know. Can you talk about some of the healthy substitutes for recipes or meal plans and things? So
a lot of sweeteners are out there now, so that's kind of here nor there because there are some food allergies related to those. So I think, like I said, back to my 30% rule. Yeah. If you're baking, usually you can cut out about 1/3 of the sugar and you'll still get a good quality product even with baking. Fortunately, can't cut the salt out. That's kind of the point of baking, so that one's a little tough. But you can use a little bit less to cut that out as well. But there's like whole grain flour you can use instead of white flour, so it's less processed. You're getting more fiber. You could even use like an oatmeal flour if you wanted to cut out about 1/3 of the whole grain. There's gluten-free, options out there now for baking gluten-free if you need to avoid the gluten for any reason. There's also lots of fruit spread kind of things you can use, like applesauce you could use in place of oil when you're baking things too. It kind of browns a little differently with baking, so you have to keep that in mind if you're replacing that. So they might look a little different, but it should taste pretty similar.
There's nothing worse than applesauce, by the way. That's just a personal thing. Yeah, I'm sure that if Rob was here, he'd be going, don't talk about that. It's just one of those foods I cannot stand. I would rather eat green peas or something than applesauce. But that's just me here.
That's a first.
There you go. One of the things that everybody talks about is you have to get more fiber in your diet as you get older. I know that's true, but talk about what are some sources of fiber so maybe some of the older listeners out there get a feel for that.
Yeah, so that's a great question because a lot of times I get that a lot because there's 2 different types of fiber, and so a lot of times my patients aren't aware like what one does over the other. So if I have someone in my office that has bowel habits and maybe IBS and more gut issues, that's the insoluble fiber. So it bulks up and helps carry things out when you're going to the bathroom and keeps things moving through. Yeah. But the soluble fiber is more what soaks up the fatty deposits in our arteries and helps with cholesterol lowering. So those two are a good combination. Most of the insolubles come in from produce. Your soluble fibers do come from some produce, but also from like oatmeal or oat-based products, legumes, or the starchy beans that we have would be good sources. But you can get it from like sweet potatoes even, or mangoes have it in it as well. So some of the darker greener orange, like vitamin C laden produce will have those too. But as long as you're eating a good variety of all of those things will help. Some of your other soluble fibers or less processed would be like your whole grain or whole wheat products too, that you can get a little extra fiber from.
I was listening to, it was a talk radio show nationwide a few weeks ago, and they talked about how blueberries are are like a superfood that no one talks about. Are you a pro blueberry person?
I am. It has a lot of benefits for memory. So if there's like a history that you know in your family for memory issues, start eating those blueberries. And it's like a 1/2 cup to a cup a day or something. So it's not a huge amount, but I mean, it is more than you're probably used to eating. And that accounts for a lot of blueberries because it's the anthocyanin that's in them that's giving them blue color. So if you think of other produce that have that darker blue, purpley color, that would be beneficial too. Even red cabbage would help.
Okay. That's awesome. And blueberries are really good. The other thing that we want to talk about is when you're counseling clients and they have a question like, is it okay to have a cheat day, or is it okay I cheated once, but then the next day I didn't eat? I mean, what do you tell them about when they tell you stuff like that?
I usually try to encourage them to not refer to it as a cheat day, number one. But a lot of times it's about just balancing, and back to that mindful word is probably going to be a buzzword, or it is a buzzword, but it's just being more cautious and mindful of those food choices and just being aware of, maybe you ate more this day than you did. And so food records can help. So I do encourage patients sometimes to jot those down just so you can see if there's a pattern of how you're eating. And it could be very, informal. It could be like, wow, I didn't eat very much this day, or wow, I ate all day long, or wow, I ate out all, I fast food all the. So you can really see it. You can probably know in your head what you're doing, but until you put it on paper and kind of evaluate it. So I do encourage my patients to give me a couple of weeks of food records so we can kind of see what they're doing if they're having a hard time recalling. Because it is amazing when I ask a patient, what did you eat yesterday? Or what do you normally eat for these meals? And they're like, deer in headlights, can't give me an answer.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about that, it's one of those things that it would be tough maybe to go back 2 weeks. Vitamin D, yay or nay on that?
Yes, definitely, especially in the Midwest. We're usually all lacking, and we're all lathered up with sunscreen, so we're helping in one area, but we're maybe not getting the vitamin D resources we can from natural sources. So supplementing is helpful. A lot of times, most sources we're getting is from dairy. So if we're not able to eat dairy or don't tolerate dairy, you're probably lacking in vitamin D also.
What about multivitamins? Are you a believer that people should supplement their diet daily or take them when needed?
Absolutely. I think it depends on your diet, but I think most of us could benefit because, we're not perfect. Nobody's probably eating everything we need to be eating, but I think that can be helpful. A lot of times, multivitamins can go different directions, so I encourage patients just whatever works for them. If they want to do a tablet, a gummy form, a powder, or a liquid, whatever they can tolerate.
One of the things that people, kind of gripe about the meal plans and eating better is it tends to be more expensive. And even in fast food restaurants, it's easier to get a double cheeseburger than a salad, they say. So how do budgets and that come into effect when you're trying to work with clients and kind of doing what you do? Yeah,
a lot of them I encourage patients to look at some of the resources that are out there for meal planning and meal prepping for looking at what are the ingredients. So really thinking how can I use canned and frozen vegetables over fresh so that you can keep them around longer. They're usually less expensive. So that way it's more affordable to cook healthy. And even buying frozen chicken tenders or chicken breasts and not breaded that you can maybe bake off and have to eat on for a week. Or you could throw them in the crock pot with a little seasoning. I'm big on salsa and chicken breast in the crock pot, and then you're seasoned and you're ready to go. And you can have multiple taco salads and enchiladas and different things through the week. So just trying to think of ways to make it easier and help them understand. Because a lot of times when I do that, then they realize, I could steam a bag of broccoli and it's some baked chicken and some pasta, and there's a nice meal.
Are you a meal planner yourself? Do you plan out meals and prep it out so that it's easier for you and their family?
I do, but once again, the caveat is, does my family want to eat that night? I haven't got that hurdle figured out.
I understand that one. The other buzzword that's out there, and this has kind of come around the last couple of years, superfoods. Talk about, do you believe there are superfoods? And then some examples if you believe that.
Yeah, your blueberries are a perfect example. Yeah,
kale
so a lot of them are just packed full of more nutrients. Like pomegranate's a big one right now in the fall, but it's just harder to get your hands on it. It's not easy to eat for most of us. So there's just a lot of benefits from different foods, like the omega-3 rich foods are fish, but a lot of patients I have can't tolerate fish, so we look at chia seed or flax to get omega-3 fatty acids from. So there's different ways to maybe get some of those superfoods in, so it's not always a supplement form. The challenge is sometimes in research, the benefits that we get from some of those ingredients are larger quantities, so we're not able to eat those foods, or we can't eat that much. So a supplement form is helpful.
Is there a food that is not available here in Central Illinois that you wish was more readily available?
Oh, wow. Nothing I can really think of. There's some of the produce comes to mind, but in fish that we don't really have fresh fish that we're accessible to, and some of the tropical fruits that are, not as easy to get our hands on and more expensive.
Now you said you have kids, so do your kids buy into all your stuff, or do they still like the fun snacks? For
I have one of each.
Oh, really?
I have one that she likes. Anything I make, she will try it, and she'll give me her honest opinion. And my son is looks at it and is like, no, I don't like it, before he even tries it.
That's funny. We have a few minutes left with Kristina Adams-Smith today from Carle, nutritionist and dietitian. Anything else that you wanted to talk about from Carle's point of view today as we go into these last couple of minutes?
Well, just I think the referrals, or a lot of times if patients would like a referral, they can certainly request one, because sometimes I'll have patients in my office and they're like, I can't believe I haven't seen you sooner, or kind of question that. So I always encourage patients to ask for a referral for other resources too sometimes, but definitely for nutrition is the sooner the better, because a lot of times things that we talk about, carry over to other health concerns that may be going on too. So sometimes I see patient for one thing, it may be for another as well. So I think that's helpful. So we can see, like I said, I'm all over the clinics for the most part. We have dietitians at other clinics too, north of Champaign and east and west. But there's a lot of us that we can see for different health concerns. So definitely use your providers as resources. You can just send them messages too electronically to get those referrals.
How do you start out, like when you first time you meet somebody brand new that is interested in a diet plan or an exercise plan, or something? Can you take us to the beginning process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I usually welcome to the office and let them know like the referral that I received for them, but ask them for sure if there's anything else that they would want to go over for today. And that usually opens up a lot more information than what I got from the chart from the referral.
Yeah.
A lot of times it can be the patient asked to see me, or they weren't aware of the referral. So it's kind of a hit or miss. I get from one extreme or to another. So usually I kind of get a breakdown of like what their day looks like as far as their meal intake, how often they're eating. I usually find out what they're drinking through the day to get a feel for, if they're getting, empty calorie drinks and things like that. If they're eating out a lot, or if they're eating at home, who does the cooking, who does the grocery shopping. So I try to get all the details to really help figure out like product brands, if I need to refer them maybe to different products to try, or if there's a way to help them, because I do have patients sometimes that are getting meals from food pantry and from food banks, and seeing it, what sources of things they're getting and what they have access to help them with understanding the food choices.
Your thoughts on these high caffeine energy drinks?
No.
You didn't even have to think about that one.
No.
And the problem is we're raising a group of young people that are kind of living on those. Does that scare you as a dietitian?
It does. I've already seen issues with some young kids in heart rate concerns and things that just should not be happening in children that age.
Are you saying for none, or every once in a while it's okay, or what's your stance on it?
I mean, every once in a while maybe, but it depends on the product, because some of them, they could have, a cup of coffee is 90 milligrams of caffeine, and it could be, 180 to more than that in some of these Monster Energy kind of drinks. So I'm not familiar with all of them, but I've seen, quite amount.
I just think it's something we all need to be aware of. A minute left. Can I ask you some unrelated questions?
Absolutely.
Or kind of related, but fun questions. Your favorite food?
Probably Mexican food of any kind.
Okay. Your least favorite vegetable?
Peas.
Peas, that's a good one. Least favorite fruit?
I don't know if I have one. I really like all fruits.
That's okay.
Probably honeydew. It's probably everybody's least favorite, but.
Okay. Your favorite Friends character, since Friends has been in the news lately?
Oh, goodness. Well, Jennifer Aniston.
I could talk. Bananas, good for you or not?
Yes.
Did you ever flunk a test in high school?
Of course. I think we all did at some point.
How many pull-ups can you do?
Maybe one.
Maybe one. Yeah, okay. And do you have you're going to have to be honest on this one. Do you have a cheat food or a cheat snack that every once in a while you're getting that Oreo cookie or whatever?
Of course. Cheetos.
Cheetos. I wouldn't have guessed that. Well, Kristina, I appreciate you coming in. Wish you happy holidays, and hopefully we made a few people's holidays better by giving them a couple tips today. So thanks for coming in and making your way to WEIU today.
That's
Kristina Adams-Smith from Carle. Everybody have a great day. We are WEIU.